Vector watched his golden hand explode at the wrist and the pieces fly away to his right. Vector faintly saw the black beam that destroyed his hand. As he looked to the left at the source, he saw Darkspeed. Darkspeed was holding a black rifle and was now aiming at Vector. Vector instantly recognized the weapon as one of his own creation. Vector cursed himself for being too busy to account for all the rifles as he dove behind Cosmos' bubble. Darkspeed remembered the black rifle that Omni took from a villain and threw just before the time weapon took him. It took some searching to find it in the desert, but him hunting Vector made it worth it. Vector was quick to keep the bubble between the two of them. Darkspeed ran at the bubble and Vector knew what would happen next. Vector reached into his costume with his left hand, his only hand, and touched something. Darkspeed jumped up and onto Cosmos' bubble so it would no longer shield Vector from him. Vector ran back toward first wave and second wave. Darkspeed took aim and pulled the trigger. The black rifle exploded in Darkspeed's hands. The explosion knocked him back and sent him sliding across the super steel landscape. Darkspeed was not knocked unconscious. His costume had saved him from most of the impact. As he checked his numb face, he felt blood, but nothing seemed missing. Darkspeed tried to stand as a kick sent him sliding back again. Vector was on top of Darkspeed before he stopped moving. Several kicks from Vector showed Darkspeed that Vector was not as strong as him. Darkspeed caught Vector's foot and pushed him back. Darkspeed jumped to his feet and saw that Vector was gone. Caught twice with the exploding weapon. I need to have my head examined, Darkspeed thought to himself. Without Cosmos attacking, many more villains were now flooding onto the field. Olympian, Eclipse, and Ion now found themselves surrounded by villains of all types. Some villains used fire, some fist, some energy attacks, and some surprised the Alphas, but no one stopped fighting. Cosmos was finally able to get his mind focused again and readied himself to renew the attacks. He felt the Omni power flow through him as he fired lightning bolts across the field. "Destroy the portals!" Olympian screamed. "How?" Cosmos answered. "Something on the other side must be breakable. Throw as much heat as you can through them." Cosmos remembered that Connors told him he would be able to make solar flares like supernovas. He thought to himself of a superheated material, like plasma, like the sun, like it was spewing from his hands. Cosmos steered his bubble in front of one of the portals and began to focus the Omni power through him and out his hands. To those watching, it looked like he was using light power as the stream from his hands was so bright. Cosmos watched as hundreds of tons of superheated liquid flowed through the portal. It only took a couple of seconds before all 8 portals disappeared. Cosmos wondered what must have just happened wherever their base was. "No more reinforcements!" Cosmos yelled to Olympian. "Great! Now fight!" Olympian yelled. Darkspeed ran through the crowd of slow-moving alphas and villains. He knew Vector must be nearby. It was just a matter of finding him. "Pretty dumb of you not to have deactivated the rifle," Darkspeed yelled. "I think you're slipping in your old age." Darkspeed tumbled forward as he was struck in the head from behind. He found himself having to shake the effect of the hit off. Darkspeed knew what that was. It was one of the N rifles that the Echoes had. Great, bleeding again, Darkspeed thought as he wiped the dark blood from his head. Darkspeed looked up to see Vector holding an N rifle with his left hand. Vector looked fresh and ready to fight. Darkspeed could also see that part of his wrist on his golden arm had grown back. "Any other smart comments?" Vector said as he fired the N rifle at Darkspeed. Darkspeed sprung both of his forearms over his face in protection. The N rifle struck him in the upper body and sent him bouncing back again. Third Wave was now under vicious attack. Some of the more powerful villains had bypassed the first and second wave in order to get right above Omni's lair. Cyber watched his team lose quickly. Night and Frost were the first ones down. "Quake, cover our retreat! Aztec, get Night to a healer!" Cyber yelled as he retrieved Frost himself. Quake shook the ground and disrupted combat. Alpha and villain alike found it hard to move, let alone fight. The retreat seemed disorganized, but it worked. The villains gathered around the territory they just claimed. A villain with power over Earth then focused her power down. The Earth twisted and spun like a whirlpool as a well 30 feet across started to dig its way down. Cyber looked back to see what was happening as he took Frost to the healers. Cyber tried to use his comm system to alert the others. The system was jammed somehow. "Zoner, you're a telepath. Get the flyers and the others to stop them," Cyber said as he pointed to the villains tunneling toward Omni's lair. In the sky, Saber quickly turned from the target he was chasing. With both hands in front of him, he fired his golden cutting sabers at villains as fast as he could. Some of the villains were wounded, but the ones near the well were protected by a force field. Over half of the Echoes were now down, and the hundreds of villains seemed to be holding their own. The ones that were left were proving harder to destroy. The The stealths were doing an excellent job of keeping the assassins from coming into play. Olympian and Eclipse were still taking them down quickly, but there were only 2 of them. Cosmos was still a force to be reckoned with, but the villains and alphas were now close together. In the distance, villain fighters could be seen rocketing through the sky. Darkspeed had now weathered a terrible beating from Vector. The 2 were finally close enough that Darkspeed fired his wrist in-gun at Vector and struck him back. Darkspeed pressed his advantage and wrestled the in-rifle away from Vector. Up close, Darkspeed could see that more of Vector's golden hand had grown back, a golden palm with no fingers. Darkspeed knew he had to finish Vector before his hand finished regrowing itself. From the fighting stance he was taught by Omni, he struck out at Vector with a punch. Vector easily dodged the blow and slapped Darkspeed across the face. "With less than a year of training, you want to fight me?" Darkspeed didn't listen. He just started striking in a pattern as fast as he could. Vector stood his ground and moved effortlessly to evade the attacks. Darkspeed started to throw some kicks into the mix. Vector moved like a kung fu master that was set on embarrassing a beginning student. "I thought Omni would have destroyed you as a baby," Vector said. "Stand still," Darkspeed grunted. "As my son, they will never accept you. They will always have Amunet or some other mind cop checking your thoughts, never trusting your intentions." "Shut up! Omni killed your mother without hesitation. Did your coach ever tell you that?" "No, of course he wouldn't. She was beautiful and loving. She cared deeply for you." "You're a murderer!" "True. That just means you're half murderer, and any animal with teeth learns to bite sooner or later." Vector reached out with his left hand and tagged Darkspeed's face. An electrical discharge like lightning made Darkspeed fall to the ground and shake. Vector stood over Darkspeed and then knelt down. "Because you're my flesh and blood, I won't kill you. Given time to think about it, you'll come around to my way of thinking." Darkspeed could hear Vector speaking to him. He tried to move, but his body would not listen to his thoughts. Vector rubbed his real hand over Darkspeed's head. "You have your mother's hair. The Mayans believed that the world would end yesterday. Did you know that? I'm sure you did. Well, it did, and a new world was born in its place. My world. A new age has come, and I will not stop until I rule all. If you follow me, I will give you the power over life and death. You will be in a position to save the lives of your friends, if they agree to serve you. Now, you'll excuse me. I have things to attend to." First Wave was now bearing down on the villains making the well to Omni's lair. Olympian was the first to follow Saber into the fight. Eclipse was next as he jumped over the echoes and landed with crushing force. Olympian had told Cosmos to take out the force field and those in it. Cosmos brought his bubble down close to the force field and raised a hand to destroy the force field. Vector ran up to the bubble and stood looking directly at the slow-moving Omni inside. Vector's first golden finger was almost ready to fire. He paused and walked around the bubble a few times. When his finger was finally ready to fire, Vector pointed it directly at the bubble and Cosmos. He remembered how the bubble deflected his last shot and aimed as direct as he could at Cosmos. From Vector's golden hand, a beam of black energy pierced the multiple force bubbles around Cosmos. The black energy was dissipated, deflected, weakened by the time it struck Cosmos. Cosmos was struck back into his bubble and knocked partially unconscious. His gut felt like it was on fire. He knew his omnium armor had been pierced. Cosmos could not keep his concentration going and his force bubbles collapsed. Vector stepped closer for another shot. Darkspeed tackled Vector from the side, grabbing only his golden hand. As they tumbled in a circle, Darkspeed landed with the hold he wanted. Darkspeed had 2 hands gripping Vector's one golden hand. Darkspeed had Vector locked in a jujitsu armbar. He was held on his back by Darkspeed's 2 legs, one across his chest and one across his face. Darkspeed kept all of Vector's fingers pointing straight up. "Nice try. Did you forget about my lightning glove?" Vector asked as he touched Darkspeed's leg. Nothing happened and Darkspeed said, "Nice try, but electricity can't get through this costume." Vector started to struggle as hard as he could. Darkspeed could now tell he was indeed stronger than Vector. As Darkspeed held Vector in one place, those around them could see them. "Cosmos! Destroy the arm!" Darkspeed yelled. Cosmos looked over to see a blur that was Darkspeed and Vector moving around on the ground. Cosmos tried to get a feel for the arm, somehow lock onto it. He was too groggy, and the arm was moving too fast. "Think of it as lightning," he thought. Cosmos felt some kind of foreign thing that must be the arm. In an instant, he was able to vaporize what he felt.